the Vikings fired Mike Zimmer, their head coach. He was in Minnesota for 8 years. He had some good years, had some bad years. Mike Zimmer in 2015 went 11-5. In 2017, they went 13-3. They went to the NFC Championship game. In 2019, they went 10-6. Now, the last 2 years in Minnesota, Mike Zimmer went 7-9 and 8-9. And his downfall was really that he had this very old school conservative philosophy on offense, and it hurt his football team. He's a defensive-minded coach who wants to run the football and doesn't like throwing. He just seems very grouchy and just kind of, I feel like the world is changing, and Mike Zimmer's been left in the past a little bit when it comes to his style and philosophy as a head coach and how he wants to run an offense. But I respect Mike Zimmer a ton. I mean, when I watch film of Mike Zimmer's defenses, I'm like, every game I feel like I'm like, well, that's an impossible blitz. That's an impossible coverage. That's amazing. I'm like, he's really good. He's hard to beat on defense. Like, he's awesome. And I think if you paired Mike Zimmer with a young offensive-minded head coach, say like Kellen Moore becomes a head coach somewhere, and he's like, hey, I want to bring Mike Zimmer along as my defensive coordinator because he's got a lot of valuable wisdom. For like a first-year head coach that's on the offensive side of the ball, Mike Zimmer is a perfect fit to be a defensive coordinator there. Kind of like Wade Phillips was the defensive coordinator for Sean McVay his first couple years in LA with the Rams. So now, is Mike Zimmer willing to be the number 2 guy? Is he willing to not be the boss? I don't know. But Mike Zimmer is a guy who is a free agent. He's a potential defensive coordinator, and he's going to be a really good hire for somebody around the NFL. Now, the Vikings also fired their general manager, Rick Spielman. And the big story from the end of Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman's run in Minnesota was that in 2017, they went to, at the end of the 2017 season, they went to the NFC Championship game and had Case Keenum at quarterback. Pat Shurmur left. Case Keenum was not retained. And in March 2018, right after that happened, January they lost, 2 months later, they were signing Kirk Cousins to a massive 3-year, $84 million contract, fully guaranteed. And the belief was, after going to the NFC title game, the belief was that Kirk Cousins was the final piece of the puzzle to get Minnesota to a Super Bowl. And they fell flat on their face. They went, since then, in the 4 years since signing Kirk, they went 8-7-1, 10-6, 7-9, and 8-9. That's not all Kirk's fault. Kirk at some points was even maybe potentially the MVP. Like, he played really, really well at a lot of points in those 4 years. But whether you like it or not, you sign Kirk Cousins to a massive contract with high expectations, and in those 4 years after that, only have one playoff win to speak of it, to show for that. That's bad, and that's a big reason why Mike Zimmer is gone, is it didn't work. There was belief there was expectations there, and they just failed really, really badly. And it's sad. I remember before this year, Vikings fans were talking about how great Minnesota was. They got all these veterans, ooh, ah, ah, and I was like, I don't believe in it, but we'll see. And I'm sorry that Vikings fans had to watch their team lose this year. And I'm curious who they hire next, because I think what they need is someone on the offensive side of the ball to help Kirk and develop that offense and get the most out of the weapons they have in offense, because they got a lot of firepower there in Minnesota. Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins. Like, they got some possibilities there. But they got to throw the ball, and they got to be aggressive. And Mike Zimmer just wasn't that. He didn't want to be that. And it really, I think, caused a massive rift between Zimmer and people that wanted to win in Minnesota.